Does anyone truly understand ADHD? What if it's not what you imagined, and you could actually change how you deal with it? Welcome to Shift's Perspective, the show where we rethink how we understand the mind. Today, we're talking ADHD, challenging what most people think they know, and looking at how it actually shows up in everyday life. In this episode, we're exploring coherence, the ability to create meaningful connections from details, whether they're linguistic, social, or sensory. I'm MR.MINDSHIFT, but just like everyone else, you can call me Shift. Back with me are Cassandra, diagnosed with ADHD at 30, and Joe, whose 20-year-old son was diagnosed at 12. Let's start by breaking down what coherence really means. If you take a look at the screen behind me, I'll try to illustrate it. From early childhood, our brains begin to build templates, linking actions with consequences, facial expressions with words, and situations with meaning. Over time, these templates help us make sense of new experiences. When something familiar happens again, we can draw on that earlier understanding to navigate it. But people differ in how they process information. Some are highly detail-focused, great at spotting differences and specifics. Others are quick to see patterns, big-picture connections, and similarities. People without ADHD often focus on context and patterns. They can quickly read a situation and instinctively adjust their behavior to fit. For many with ADHD, that's harder. Their ability to hold attention and focus is reduced, so key information may be missed. And without those pieces, it's tough to make sense of what's happening or respond in a way that fits the moment. That can lead to behavior that others see as off, disruptive, or out of place. Because of impulsivity and distraction, many with ADHD act before they think, missing the details that create meaning and guide response. And often, it's only after the moment has passed that they reflect on what happened, replaying what was said or done, and wishing they'd responded differently. Once they've had time to process it. Cassandra, you've shared before how easily you get distracted, how your mind can feel like a popcorn machine, and how long conversations often make you zone out, just like we saw in the intro. I'm curious, have you ever had a moment where a single word, sound, or someone's expression triggered an impulsive thought that you felt you just had to act on? And looking back, have you ever wished you'd responded differently, once you had the chance to process it all?
Yes, all the time, honestly. It's like one small thing can completely hijack my brain. A word, a look, even a sudden sound, and I'm off chasing that thought without meaning to. And yeah, I definitely react before thinking sometimes. Then later, when things calm down, I'll replay it all in my head, and suddenly I can see the full picture. It's frustrating because, in the moment, it feels like I'm missing half the story. Only afterward do I realize what was really going on. And what I wish I'd said instead.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I really appreciate how clearly you're putting it into words. That feeling of suddenly being hijacked by a single detail. I think a lot of people with ADHD will recognize that. Could you maybe say a bit more about that moment? What it feels like when your brain locks onto a word, a look, or a sound, and everything else kind of disappears?
Yeah, it's like my brain grabs onto something, a word, a certain look, and suddenly, it's running with it. I'll start imagining all these different scenarios. Like, what did they really mean? Or, did I say something wrong? And it just spirals. Most of the time, I know it doesn't make sense. But in the moment, it feels real. Like I have to figure it out. Sometimes I can't let it go for hours. I've even had nights where I couldn't sleep because I was still stuck replaying a sentence someone said earlier that day.
Yeah, that really resonates. And I think a lot of people with ADHD will recognize that pattern. It's not just overthinking, it's your brain trying to fill in gaps, where something didn't quite land in the moment. That intense replaying of what someone said, how they looked at you, and wondering what you should have said or done differently. It all comes from how the ADHD brain processes social and emotional input. Let me show you what's actually happening behind the scenes. Take a look at the screen behind me. So why does this kind of overthinking happen? The explanation actually connects to several of the areas we've explored throughout this series. like attention, emotional regulation, working memory, and coherence. We dive deeper into each of them in their own episodes. But here's a quick overview of what's going on behind the scenes. First, coherence. People with ADHD often pick up isolated details, a word, a glance, a tone, but struggle to connect them into a full picture. That uncertainty creates space for second guessing and overthinking. Second, impulsive processing. Reactions happen fast, often emotionally, before full meaning settles. The brain responds to fragments, then later spirals into, wait, what actually happened? Third, emotional sensitivity. Many are highly tuned into expressions and tone. A sigh or subtle look can feel intense and stick, lingering long after the moment has passed. And finally, working memory. When details fade too fast, the brain tries to fill in what was missed. That's when the mental replays begin, not for drama, but to make sense of what wasn't fully processed. Okay, let's step out of our heads for a moment and into the real world. Because while this kind of overthinking can be exhausting, there are ways to make it easier. It starts with small, concrete strategies that help your brain feel safer, more prepared, and less likely to spiral. So let's take a look at some of the ideas that people with ADHD have found really helpful. When it comes to handling social moments, emotional replays, and all the noise in between, if your brain tends to get stuck replaying moments or struggling to make sense of things after they happen, you're not alone. But there are ways to support your coherence in everyday life. Like this. Try to slow things down, literally. Use pauses in conversations to check in with yourself. What just happened? What did they say? It also helps to use visual or written structure, like mind maps, diagrams, or just scribbling thoughts on paper. That externalizes the info your brain is trying to organize. And if you miss something, ask, can you say that again? Is a strength, not a flaw. You can even rehearse social situations ahead of time. That way your brain has a frame, and you're less likely to get hijacked by a sudden detail. And after the fact, talk it through with someone you trust. Often just saying it out loud helps the pieces fall into place. All of these are ways of helping your brain do what it wants to do, create meaning from the world around you. What if understanding ADHD wasn't about labels, but about unlocking potential? In our next episode, we're exploring imagination, the intuitive ability to anticipate what's coming next, why it matters, and what happens when it's challenged. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to explore this on a more personal level, you can join the free Shifts Perspective Forum. The link is below. And for those of you who want to go deeper, you'll also find worksheets and extra content in the description. Hope to see you again.